Welcome back to another episode of Building Up Your Business, the podcast. My name is Erica Dill. I am your host from Operationally Up. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Katie Wagner. It's going to be another great episode. So remember, from bombs to order fulfillment, marketing to taxes, learn the stuff from the pros before you step in it. Katie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see you.
It's going to be another great episode. Katie and I had some great talks before this episode. And one of the things that I love the most about today's topic is that this episode is an example of what we're going to be talking about. With 15 years, Katie's always like, yep, you got it. I learned all about it. I'm excited. With 15 years of experience as a journalist, Katie gained expertise in captivating audiences and building trust. She is now the owner of KWSM, where she and her team use their expertise to provide comprehensive digital marketing solutions. Some of her clients are people you know, like Mitsubishi, Anthem Blue Cross, and F45 Fitness Studios. She also is a sought-after speaker delivering keynote presentations and workshops to both corporate and small business audiences, which makes her a great person to be joining us today when we talk about how to nearbound market your way into growth. So, Katie, I want to kick us off strong and start with a few definitions for those people out there who maybe don't know what we're talking about. When we say nearbound marketing, what are we referencing?
Yeah, well, let's back up just a little bit. Everybody knows inbound marketing, which is traditional content marketing, where you do blogs and SEO and that sort of thing, and you pull traffic into your website. And then most of us have heard of outbound marketing, which is basically cold outreach through cold calls or cold emails, ads, that sort of thing. But nearbound marketing doesn't get talked about nearly enough, Erica, and that is leveraging strategic partnerships to sell through those partners into their audiences. And, I believe that nearbound is the future of lead generation because those other elements, inbound and outbound, are more saturated than they used to be. They are harder to get results. And really, at our core, people trust people. And so if we can sell or market through referral partners, strategic partners, and reach new audiences that way, we're sort of transferring that trust that our partners already have with their audience. And I really think that it's something that all business owners need to be aware of and be leveraging.
And I think that's great. And you're talking about like how outbound marketing is so saturated. I think you hear statistics where people are just thrilled because they get a 1% open rate. And it's like, holy cow, like for every 100 emails you send, you get one person to open an email. And then the percentage of responses is even fewer. Like, I don't think that that's something to be celebrating.
Well, but it's the way things are going. I mean, with the advent of AI, the internet is so flooded with content that it's just noisy. There's too much stuff out there. And what that's also done is really erode people's trust in what's on the internet because, as you know, not everything AI produces is 100% accurate. So I think we're seeing low levels of trust with the internet through misinformation, through AI content, sort of the state of our world. So marketing, I specialize in lead generation, and getting leads that way is a lot more difficult because people don't trust the things that are coming up in their Google searches anymore. And I think that fundamentally, that's why we have to go back to like who we are as people and the root of it, because people trust people. They want to connect with people. They want to build relationships. And as much as I love digital, if we can just remember the root of who we are, I think it helps us get better results in today's digital climate.
Well, and I think that that's why there are so many sites, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, all of them, that are rewarding people for producing video content because
Yes.
written content, you could just go on to GPT and say, hey, write me an article about this. But somebody who's actually creating a video, well, I mean, I know that you can do a lot with AI, but
Right.
for the most part, people who are creating video content aren't using AI to do it.
Yeah, and Google does reward, and the algorithms all reward authenticity. They want to see real content from real people. And that's why one of the things we lean into at the agency is really thought leadership for our clients. How do we create content that is accurate but also authentic and really showcases their point of view? And to your point, most of the time that content comes in the format of video. Because when somebody can see your face and hear your voice, kind of like we're doing now, it builds a lot more trust with your audience. They feel like they know you better than if they're just reading something that may or may not have been ghostwritten or that sort of thing. So all the algorithms on social media reward video, and I think that's not going away anytime soon. And then also things like, websites that have video embedded in them perform better. Email marketing that has video embedded performs better. And so I do think we're really craving that genuine authenticity connection piece.
Yeah, and I love the fact that we're, especially with AI coming, that we're talking about trust in marketing and that authenticity with it, because I think a lot of times the old school way of doing marketing is what some people are still banking on, and they don't quite understand that where these markets are going and that you have to keep up with these trends in order to stay ahead of what your competitors are doing or to keep up with your competitors. If they know what they're doing and they know how to use and leverage these tools, you better know how to use them as well. And I think that that relates back to the new wave of the authenticity being the way to market.
Yeah, and I think you've hit on something else important, which is the way to be effective in marketing changes constantly. And so if you had a marketing program, 5 years or even let's say a year ago, it may have worked. And you might find that it increasingly becomes less effective. And that's because the tools are constantly changing. The climate is constantly changing. Like we like to say that at the agency, we have a new job every 6 months because what worked last week isn't going to work next week to generate leads. And you do have to evolve not only the tools you use, but the strategy in which you're using those tools. So I think one of the biggest mistakes sometimes people make is they don't revisit that strategy and update things and have an eye toward the future. And to your point, what the competitors are doing, what the target audience wants to be consuming, all of those things are changing rapidly. Even things like, our geopolitical climate changes and the types of content that resonate with people change. Like the world is a fast moving, wonky kind of place. And you have to constantly be adjusting your strategy to play well there.
And that is so timely. And I think you and I could probably go down this whole rabbit hole of this type of thing. So I love that we were able to give listeners like just a tidbit of a marketing strategy on the whole. So I kind of want to go back to like nearbound marketing, because one of the things that I I mean, it's complicated enough. We're talking about like you have to stay up on your marketing, you have to stay current, you have to stay okay. Well, for business leaders who maybe they're smaller and they don't have a full-time marketing team, they're like, oh my God, I have another thing that I have to do, that I have to keep up and keep on trends. And then you want me to nearbound market, which is strategic partnerships. Well, that's a lot of moving pieces. That's so complicated. Does it always have to be that complicated? Are there some tips or tricks to not make it so complicated?
Yeah, I think like most things, it can be as complicated as you allow it to be, right? You can go all in, or I think there are easy ways to scratch the surface. Like you alluded in your intro, what we're doing now is nearbound marketing because we are recording this conversation together, and then I'm going to share it with my audience, who will then be exposed to you and your business, and you're going to share it with your audience, who will be exposed to me and my business. That is what we're talking about here, using partners to get the word out to a wider audience. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to have your own podcast. You could do that by interviewing one of your strategic partners in a blog post and then asking them to share that blog post. You could do it by co-creating let's say we did a survey or a research piece sponsored by both our companies and co-creating content that way. We could appear in a video together or even host an event and have the other person speak at it. There are a million ways to sort of expose your partners to your audience and likewise you to their audience. And these are very natural things. I mean, most of us are members of networking groups, or we go to chamber meetings or, special events. Like all of that is because we're hoping to meet people through other people there. That's all the precursor of nearbound marketing. It's just taking that and making it more formalized into a co-creation of content type arrangement.
And I think one of the things that companies don't realize is the gold mine that they're sitting on as
Mm,
far as their vendors,
yes,
their strategic partners doesn't have to be, I mean, of course, spoiler alert, Katie and I met at a networking event,
we did.
which we all support going to networking events, but it
Yes.
just because we met there doesn't mean that everyone has to go to networking events and meet people there. You can look towards your vendors, you can look
Mhm.
towards just people that you know in your social circles maybe have businesses that are tangentially related. And I
Yes.
think that's what makes it so simple. And just to give a spoiler alert on how to record a video, I record on Riverside. It's $12 a month. We can record and I can post this video tomorrow. And I think it would take me an hour and a half tops. So
Yeah.
anybody can do something this similar. And Katie, what I think you're saying is that it's just that easy.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the barriers have been broken down. There are softwares like Riverside that make it easy. You could, record a Zoom call if you had
Yeah.
to and turn it into a video. The other thing I think that we miss is that our clients can help us with nearbound marketing. Like if I take a client who's had a great experience with the agency and I have them do a video testimonial or we write up a case study about the way we helped them, that is nearbound marketing because they may share it on their social media channels or someone may see it and say, oh, I know that person. And if they know somebody who's worked with me, automatically I get more trust from that relationship. So it doesn't necessarily even have to be strategic partners. It could be clients, it could be the press. Sending press releases is nearbound marketing because you're leveraging the trust that the public has in the press to transfer to you and your business. Influencer marketing, if you've ever played with that at all, getting people to endorse your products or services through content on their own social media channels. All of those are ways to use nearbound marketing. So many of us, I bet, have been doing it and not even realizing that's what we've been doing. And so just even putting some strategic thought behind it and formalizing your program a little bit can be a huge step ahead.
I love that you brought up case studies because when I've talked to clients about creating case studies, and before I even started my own business, when people were like, oh, have case studies to market your own business, I was like, that sounds terrifying. How do I write this whole case study and like get all of this together? I know it's not that complicated, but can
Right.
you, for our listeners, explain an simplified version of how they could create a case study that doesn't sound so daunting?
Sure. A case study has to have simply three things. What was the problem that you were brought in to solve? What did you do to solve the problem? And what was the result? And those things could be bulleted, right? You don't need paragraphs and paragraphs about these if you're going to write up a case study. It just says, here's the problem. This person, and I'll use me as an example. This client came to us because they needed to generate more leads online. Okay, so we did SEO and we built a website and we used pay-per-click advertising. And then the result was we doubled the traffic on their website and they started getting 5 leads a week. Like that's a case study, right? I just attach you use the client's name and maybe a little more context, but it only has to be that easy. And then, ideally you would have a quote or a video or something from the client speaking about your work with them, which I think is a really nice way to sort of add that authenticity and to enhance it. But I think, so many of us get psyched out about like, oh, I don't have time to produce these things. It's hours of writing. It's really not. Like if you do business development for your business, chances are you're telling a lot of these stories in your sales calls, right? Don't we
Already.
all have like this client success story that we tell over and over again when somebody says, well, tell me what your business can do? Those are the kinds of things that you just anecdotally need to track and write down. And the more of that you have on your website and in your marketing materials, the more trust that's building with your audience, and the easier it is to convert leads.
Yeah, and I love that. The other thing that you mentioned too is influencers.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, another very daunting thing for people because they think, oh, I'm going to have to spend a small fortune or they're all just out for themselves. Nobody actually wants to like really help my business. Can you talk more about how influencers work and how it would be maybe a little bit easier for companies and to not think of it as such a negative term?
Yeah, I mean, isn't it shocking that influencer is now a job, right? People make a living, a very good living, off being
Yeah,
influencers, right? Which is kind of something that, when I was in college, wasn't even on the radar, but
no.
it's a job people aspire to these days. But basically, influencing or using an influencer is just using a third party validation of your product or service. And here's a hint: I prefer for my clients not to pay influencers because it can be very, very expensive. And so we usually try to trade product or service in order for the influencer to make that content. So if we have a product, we'll give them the product and ask them to make content about it, or we'll trade a service and ask them to make content about it. And there are contracts that go into these things that don't have to be particularly complicated, but I like to say, look, if you love it and you want to, make great content about it, great, that's what we want. If you don't love it, please come and tell us that, and let's talk about whether to explore this partnership, right? Because what you don't want is to incentivize an influencer to say horrible things about your product or service. And most influencers will be reasonable. They'll say, you know what, this isn't for me. I don't have anything positive to say, so maybe we should talk about calling this thing off.
Well,
I think simple things like that, where you say, I'm going to give you this widget, you're going to use it. I'd love for you to make 3 social media posts about it. And then when they do, they're not only sharing that on their channels, but you can repurpose that. It's called user generated content. And you can repurpose that content on your social media or your email marketing as well. And it doesn't have to be a famous person. Do you search the internet for people who have posted pictures about your business or posted, comments about your business? If people are using the product you manufactured and they're posting about it, that's user generated content. You should be sharing that on your channels. So it doesn't even have to be a formal influencer arrangement. Many times, people that are normal purchasers of your product can be used as influencers.
well, and it's actually funny because I was working with a restaurant
Hmm.
who had, spoiler, I'm not in marketing, but they were telling me about how they don't do social media like at all. They maybe post once in a while,
Yeah.
nothing big, but their guests post constantly about their great experiences, the amazing food. And so when people come in and dine in the restaurant and they say, "Oh, I saw you guys on Instagram, TikTok, whatever,"
Hmm.
it's interesting because they don't post at all. It's other people posting about it. And so something as simple as people loving you posting about it is amazing. And
Right.
if you want to incentivize people, you offer, post a review and here's, a 10% off coupon. Or I
Sure.
mean, how many times have we gone to places where they're like, write a Yelp review and show me your Yelp review and we'll give you $5 off or something like that. And
Yeah.
that's a that would that count?
That totally counts. Or have a contest, give them a hashtag to use and say, post about us and use this hashtag. And at the end of the month, we're going to search all the pictures in this hashtag and give something away, or that sort of thing. All of that counts. You reminded me, we had a client that produced hard cider, and they wanted to build their viewership online. And so we started asking people to use special hashtags when they posted about our products. And it's amazing how many people were already posting that we didn't know about because there was no hashtag to search. And so if you have a brick and mortar location, you could put signs with the hashtag on the wall, or you could send and have it in the emails that you send out to your customers, but make them aware of how to tag you or alert you to this content, because in so many cases, that hard cider company, we found 3,000 posts a month with their hashtag. And to your point, Erica, we never had to create content again. We would just borrow content from people out there already doing it and share it on our channels. And so, how much does that say about the brand that all these people are posting about how much they love this cider? And it was very good, but that's free marketing. That's marketing from people who actually paid for your product to begin with. So that's definitely something you can leverage, and all of that is nearbound marketing.
You used a term earlier that we kind of glossed over, but I wanted to go back to it because I think it's important for people to understand, especially when you're talking about nearbound marketing. You said user generated content, or
Yeah.
what user market, or what was it? It was user generated content. Was that the
Yeah,
term?
UGC,
You
user generated content.
give us
And
a definition. Yeah.
yeah, all that means is posts that other people make about your brand or product or service, right? It's content that's out there on the internet about you that wasn't generated, wasn't created by you. And things that are on the internet are free game, so you can turn that into posts for your own business. And it is much more compelling to have a post where Erica posted about how much she loved your sunscreen than you saying how great our sunscreen is, right? And so I think that if you're not monitoring those things and seeing who's talking about you online, you're probably missing out on an opportunity to easily have more content to market.
When I think companies misunderstand the power, or don't even think about the power that they have in reposting somebody else's content, because these people who are generating content are just everyday users. And
Mhm.
if they're posting saying, "Oh, I love this sunscreen, it's so great," and then you go and repost that, what you just did to them is they're going to think it's the coolest thing ever that this company just reposted. So it's not even like something you should get like worried about, because it
Right.
actually gives them some sort of validation. So it's almost a benefit.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And you're making them the star, which is really what you want to do, not always be talking about your product or service. Like make your customers the stars of the show, because those are the people that are going to sing your praises, are going to tell their friends about you, and are going to come back and be repeat buyers and customers over and over again. So I believe that when you're talking about marketing, a lot of us spend money on acquiring new customers, but sometimes we forget to also spend money or time or resources on nurturing our existing customers and sharing their content, or at the very least commenting on their content is a very easy way to do that. Like just writing a post saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you loved it. Thanks so much." Or sending them a coupon code because they've been such a great supporter. Or saying, "Hey, can I showcase this post on our brand channels?" Like people love that stuff and it makes them feel important and it builds more brand loyalty.
That's so awesome. And you've given so many easy to use tips, things. One of the things we love about in this podcast is giving companies things they can act on tomorrow that don't cost them anything.
Yeah.
Because what we're trying to do is help these businesses grow. And you have given so many nuggets of information. I can't even begin to thank you, Katie.
Yeah, no, are you kidding? I can talk about this stuff all day long. I tell anybody listening, just call me, we'll brainstorm. This is what
Yeah,
I love
I
to do.
I love that. Well, you guys heard it. Katie said, call her and she'll
Right.
brainstorm with you. Like, it
That's
is
right.
now officially recorded. Well, and if you do want to reach out to Katie, we're going to put her contact information in the description. So if you want to talk more nearbound marketing, or any of the other marketing types that we talked about, please join us back and reach out to Katie and her team. They do excellent work. And remember that you can do it too. Just re-listen to this podcast and get all the juicy tips. And Katie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
Well, thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Building Up Your Business, the podcast. My name is Erica Dill. I'm with Operationally Up. We're here to help your consumer growing business build more profitably and scalability. So, without another day of fantastic episodes, come see us again in 2 weeks. We'll be here with another great pro, and we'll catch you then. Until then, have a fabulous day. Thanks.